got Tim Kulhanek of Stonebridge Well Systems and the Lincoln office. Don't be scared, though, if you're hearing the show. There is an Omaha office, also a Grand Island office, and a Kearney office. But I've got Tim here, and
we're everywhere.
One of the founding fathers, founding stone. It's Stonebridge Well Systems, anyway, and the show is called Retirement Compass Radio Show. I'm Jackie Selby with Tim Kulhanek. How you doing, Timmy?
Pretty good. How about you?
I'm great.
Good.
Yes,
Good.
Great. It's cold, it's winter, and
Is it cold where you are?
yeah, it's cold where I am.
It's not. As of this recording, yesterday it was like. So this is going to totally throw people off because I have no idea what the weather's going to be like when you hear this. But as of this recording, it was like 60 degrees yesterday in Nebraska in February, early February.
Okay, that's kind of weird.
Yeah.
That's kind of unnatural.
Yeah, all the cold, nasty weather has been like towards the east, it seems like. You know what I mean?
Yes.
East, northeast, but even like you got all the iguanas falling out of the trees in Florida and,
I thought that was AI, the guy with the truckload of frozen iguanas.
No, they're eating them. They're the chicken of the trees.
What is happening right now?
I don't know. It's just the world we live in.
Chicken of the trees.
Yes.
Well, I know that they are non-indigenous to
Yeah, and they're an invasive
Florida.
species, so like
Yeah.
they want them to get out of town.
Wow, that's trippy. That really is too much. All right, let's bring this back to the financial world before I go down too many other rabbit holes here.
Iguana.
Holes. Iguana holes. All right, we're going to talk about our retirement planning, and most people do not focus on the numbers, do they? Or do they? Are they too focused on the numbers, Tim Kulhanek?
Oftentimes they are.
Yeah.
And so, the ability to try to tune out and to just train yourself to avoid the noise, I think is really critical. I met with a couple the other day and, she asked, she's like, well, what's the market doing today? And I was just honest. I said, I have no idea. And I'm in meetings most of the day.
Right.
And
You're not checking up on the market.
well, not only that, but I'm not measuring my performance with a yardstick. In other words, the best way to do it if you're an investor is think about it this way. If I asked you, hey, how far is it from Lincoln to Kansas City? And you said, it's however many 100 miles. I said, no. How many yards is it? How many feet is it? And then I hand you a ruler or a yardstick and I say, hey, next time you go to Kansas City, I want you to measure the distance with this thing. Like, what are you talking about? There's no way I'm going to do that. I'll measure it in miles and time. Okay, how many seconds is it? Well, I'm not going to tell you that. I'm going to tell you how many hours. It took me 2 hours and 50 minutes to get there. Okay. Well, then why are you measuring the performance of your portfolio in seconds and in yards and feet? Because that's what people oftentimes do. And sometimes they get what we like. One guy just told me he refers to as the goldfish effect, which is you could have a lot of things with your portfolio that are doing great, right? And maybe a few things that aren't doing as well. And what you tend to focus on, like you could have a year where your return is 15%, which by all, objective measures is a great return. And you could be like, yeah, but I lost 3% in that fund right there. Or that stock was down though. Yeah, sometimes stocks are going to be down. That's why picking stocks is a really difficult endeavor. In fact, if you look at the data over the last 3 years, from 23, 4, into the end of 25, so as of December 31st, 2025, roughly 42% of the stocks that trade on the New York Stock Exchange and the NASDAQ were negative. Let me say that again. Almost half, 42%, had lost money over that time period. Do you know how many large cap growth mutual funds or ETFs were negative over that time period?
The same?
2.
Oh.
No. Like less than 1%, right?
Okay.
And the point is, like, oftentimes we focus on the wrong thing. We focus on trying to pick winners, and then we get emotional.
I see.
And we let our fear override our sound judgment, and we panic at the wrong time and hit the ejection button. Or we see that things have gone up, and we decide that's when we want to buy. It's because, things are going good now. I can't tell you, Jackie, how many people come in here who they say, well, I'm pretty comfortable managing my portfolio. And then you dig a little bit deeper. You ask a few more questions. You try to smoke out, what does that actually mean? What do you mean by you're pretty comfortable? And you say, how did things go? Like, let's say pandemic hits. And I had somebody who's like, I actually avoided that. yeah, no, back in 2019, I had a feeling, still inner voice came to me, and I moved out of the market. Like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. Well, yeah, you don't need me then. Why are we here? Well, I'm just trying to decide when to get back in. Wait a minute. No, just so I understand, you're telling me that you avoided the pain in 2020 because the very short-lived pain, right? The V-shaped recovery, the double-digit return that we ended up having in 2020. You avoided that, but you also avoided the good return in 2021. You avoided 2022.
Oh, it was still out. I see.
That's the point, right? Is because if you get out when you get back in, and too many people, they think that, I can time this. And time in beats timing. Like, I'm focused on execution over speculation. So that's why using sound investment principles, getting in the market and staying in the market. Now, you can get in a responsible manner. You don't have to jump in with 2 feet when the market's trading near all-time highs. But allowing the volatility of Wall Street to dislodge or dislocate your sound financial plan without just letting the thing work is a big reason why a lot of people, like we said in the teaser, like, it's a really tough thing. It's trying to avoid allowing your emotions to override your, basic instinct and override your logic.
This is very interesting subject matter. Now, I'm going to give your number, 866-295-5146. Call Stonebridge Well Systems, 866-295-5146. And they have 11 experienced advisors to help you between the spread of offices. Again, the number 866-295-5146. We're talking about the emotional part of saving and retirement money. Why do people sabotage themselves then instead of using smart planning with a professional?
Maybe some of it's Dunning-Kruger, right? Some of it's like the belief that I can do this. I don't need, I don't need any help. There was studies that have been done on this. And, if you ask, you survey people and you say, hey, you're flying on an airplane and you're cruising along at 32,000 feet, and then boom, the cockpit door flies open and both pilots have been incapacitated. They're completely passed out and you can't get them to wake up. What do you do? Could you, if you had to, could you land the plane? Could you fly and land the plane? And I'm pretty sure it's a lot higher percentage of men versus women say, like, come on, how hard could it be? Of course I could do that. Of course I could, And I think sometimes that's the case is we watch, we attend a seminar or something, or we watch some YouTube videos online and we think like, oh, well, I can do this. But it's a different thing when it's your money, right? And so, like, part of my job is to manage people's investment strategies, design, implement, and manage their overall retirement plans. But really, it's to be that objective voice that prevents the self-sabotage, because left to their own devices, most people do. If you look at a chart that measures, let's say, inflows or outflows of large cap mutual funds versus returns, and you kind of layer them on top of one another, what you often see is when the returns are really good is when people buy, and when the returns are really bad is when people sell. And so as much as we tell ourselves like, oh, that's not going to happen, I'm not going to allow that to happen to me, a huge portion of the population it does happen to. And so the idea of a advisor, one of the biggest things an advisor can do is to help the people avoid allowing that to happen. Now, here's what I'll say before we go to break. I want to make sure I make this clear. A lot of advisors, unfortunately, contribute to the problem, I would argue. In other words, they get caught up in the same thing, and it's like, I don't want to lose my client's money. And the client calls and they say, I want out. And the advisor says, yeah, let's do it. Because we want to be agreeable as human beings. We want to not disappoint, or, hey, it's your money, But, and I kind of was that way in the early stages of my career. Like, I didn't want to, like, hey, you did all the work to earn this.
Right.
But that's not why they're paying me. You're paying me, like, one of our core values is truth over comfort. So if I tell you, you hired me, if I tell you, hey, no, we shouldn't do that, you're making a terrible decision, and here's why. And if you get mad at me, then fine. Whoops.
Wow, excuse you.
I sneezed and I had to cover the sound. Have I ever lost a client over that? Yeah, I actually one time had a client who demanded that I move his money out of the market, and I said, it's your money, and so if you insist, I can't tell you no. I'm telling you this is a terrible decision, and you shouldn't be doing this. I think it was the COVID type of scenario, and like a few months later, he moved his account, because he wanted to be in cash. And why did I tell him no? Because drawdowns happen, and especially those event-driven types of drawdowns, like, hey, X happened, right? Cause and effect. Here's the result. People always, it seems, overreact, and so the market goes into this oversold type of environment where it went down too much too fast. And if you look at the last 6 years, when were the best buying opportunities? I can think of 3. One was the pandemic, right? It was spring of 2020.
Buy the dip.
BTD. Right. One of them was in 2022, and then the final one was just last year in April. So if you're looking for someone who's going to tell you the truth and truly values the truth over having you feel warm and comfortable and is willing to make those hard decisions and say, no, now's not a good time, and actually disagree with you rather than just being a yes man, Stonebridge, we might actually be a good fit. But to investigate that, it's worth a call, meet with one of our experienced advisors and find out where you're at on your road to retirement. If everything's going great, the worst thing that can happen is you're going to get good confirmation. And if there's some things that you could change, some dials you could turn now so you don't look back 5 years from now and say, I wish I would have known that, that's going to feel pretty good too. It'll be tremendous help to your overall financial success. Give us a call today.
866-295-5146, 866-295-5146. Retirement Compass Radio Show. Do your own investigations. Do your own research.
Is your retirement being eaten up by financial termites like hidden fees, inflation, and avoidable taxes? Call today for a complimentary financial review so we can help you root out these retirement killers.
We all have financial blind spots, I feel like, and we cover them a lot on the show. Retirement Compass Radio Show. I've got Stonebridge in the house, Tim Kulhanek. Lend your expertise to this, Tim. Behavioral finance taught us a whole bunch of things, right? All the emotions and stuff. But let's go forward into things like AI or automation. Or can automation help retirees avoid costly mistakes? What do I mean by that? Automation.
What do you mean by that?
I don't know. Automation kind of takes the emotion out of things if you automate deductions so that you pay yourself first and things of this nature.
I guess when I think of automation, I think of...
cookie cutter?
No, not necessarily.
All right.
I think of, again, the ultimate objective being to try to remove emotion from the investment decision-making process and... having, again, a sounding board, a third party, if you will, would be a good financial advisor, would be that third party. But also automating things like during the accumulation phase, it'd be like automating your contribution. So you don't have to think about it. That's going to get you a lot closer to retirement success. I met with we had a referral. It was a young couple. Usually when I meet with younger people, it's a referral from like a parent or a grandparent even. Uh-huh. And, it's a young couple. They're in their early 30s and trying to get things figured out. And, I'll just give you kind of the lay of the land. They've got one child, one on the way. And they said, hey, I've got this IRA. I got a 401k at work. I don't contribute to it because they don't match. I get a profit sharing. And I get, essentially I treat it like a bonus. It doesn't go into my 401k, which I'm a little surprised by. I just take it as cash. Daycare costs are really a concern of ours because when baby 2 comes along, you get a whole 5% discount for the second child. And right now we're paying $1,000 a month for just one, which tracks because, I was looking at some of what we were paying before Marley started staying home with the girls, and it's extremely expensive. Mm-hmm. And we're not sure. We put a little bit of money into a 529 plan. I'm not putting really much. I'm putting $50 or $60 a month into my Roth IRA. We've got, some cash that we've received from these bonuses, and we just got our tax return done. They already had the taxes done at the end of January, and we got $9,000 back. Now, laying that out, again, there's only so much I can do because there's only, your income is what your income is, and your expenses are what your expenses are. Now, do we want to start attacking that? Yes. So how can we mitigate those expenses, limit those? Because right now they have about a $400 monthly cushion, but when baby number 2, after maternity leave is over, they're going to have a negative $600 roughly monthly deficit. So where can we find the money they need in order to cover those additional costs?
Yes.
So this is more like, you were talking about automation. You want to automate your savings, but how do we get to a point where we can save? So for some people, it's just not the case that, they're being irresponsible or something like that. It's just that, hey, they've got to figure out a plan and a strategy. So just from a high level, some thoughts as I reviewed the situation the other night, I was like, well, they've got a loan. They've got a car loan. They took it out in 2023, so that was after interest rates really shot up. I wouldn't be surprised if that loan was costing them 8% or 7% or higher. So, we should probably take some of this cash that's making 0.08% in the bank account that's above and beyond what they need in their emergency fund, and we should wipe out that car loan because that's $420 a month.
Yes.
So they did have a $400 cushion. Now they've got a $820 cushion because we had $400 plus the $420 that they won't have to pay anymore, because there's no escrow in a car payment, right? It's different when you pay off your house. You still have taxes and insurance. You still have taxes and insurance, but it's not wrapped inside of the payment that you're making on your auto loan, right? Auto loan. Okay, so now we're closer. We're at $820. We need to get to 1,000 or more. Really, we need to get to above 1,000, probably like 1,200 to have a little bit of a cushion. Well, out of what I said so far with their situation, where else do you think I could find some dollars to try to shore up this cash flow crunch?
Tax. We kind of we entered the conversation in the tax discussion.
So they're getting $9,000 back on their tax return. Why is that a bad thing, not a good thing?
Because they had too much withheld.
Yeah, but why is that bad?
Because they could have been using it and using that money for themselves.
And instead, who is getting to use it?
The U.S. government.
And how much are they paying on the loan that you made them?
Oh, nada.
0, right? She gave an interest-free loan to the government of $750 a month. So even if we don't cut it by that, I only need about another $400, and I'm going to feel pretty good. $600 would be even better. So adjust the W-4. Potentially stop putting money into the 529, put more into your Roth, because you can pull money out of your Roth at any time. Even if you're not 59 and a half, you can pull the basis out.
Oh.
You don't know if the kid's going to get a scholarship, go to a tech school, go to a school that they don't need as much, basically, versus a 4-year college. There's a lot of what ifs there. I'd rather make sure that, you're taken care of first. So kind of the line of attack with this plan will be, hey, you're over contributing, you're over withholding. We can adjust that. Pay off the car loan. It's eating you up, and you're losing money every year on that because those excess savings dollars aren't helping you. Plus, we found out that here they are about to be a family of 4. He's the breadwinner. He makes pretty good money. But his only life insurance to protect his family if something happened to him is this roughly $90,000 policy that he had acquired that his grandfather bought for him when he was a baby, right?
Oh, no kidding. Okay.
31 years ago. And so it's got like $3,000 or $4,000 in cash, but it's only a $90,000 death benefit. So it's roughly 1 year's salary for him. Well, that's not near enough. It wouldn't pay off your mortgage. It wouldn't pay for any schooling. It wouldn't replace any of your income. No. There's just a huge gap. And he's paying $38 a month for it. I cross-referenced that, and I said, okay, at $38 a month at your age and good health, how much insurance could you buy if you did a 30-year term instead of this universal life policy that you've had for 31 years that isn't doing anything for you? If you just kept your premium the same, right, assuming you get approved in good health, I ran it like preferred, it was like $750,000 of death benefit for 30 years. So until he's 65 years old, let's say, that he could have for the same money that he is providing $90,000 of coverage. So it's like, I can increase the protection for your family by $660,000 at no cost to you, right? Zero cost to you. Now, do you give up the permanency of the policy? Sure, but what good is that if something happens to you and your wife has to go, I don't know, take out a huge loan because she can't afford, you got to sell the house? Like, those are the things that we talk about. So is this our core demographic? No, but you can understand that financial planning, no matter what stage of life you're in, it's not a product you buy. It's a process that you engage with. And the experienced advisors that we've developed here at Stonebridge Wealth Systems, they've been trained in this continuum of problem solving to understand your first appointment with us is never going to be, here's the solution. We're not going to provide any solutions at that first appointment. We're going to gather information. We're going to ask you questions. We're going to ask second and third level questions.
Right.
Like, what do you want to do in retirement? Enjoy myself. What does that look like to you?
Yeah.
None of that surface level stuff, because that's not really what's important. And then we find we design a customized, an individual plan for your unique financial situation. We implement it, and then we manage it over your lifetime, guiding you, navigating you to and through the retirement that you've been dreaming of to achieve those things that are important to you. That's what we do. And if that's not what you feel like you're getting right now with whoever you may be working with or interacting with, or you've been going it alone and you think that you maybe need the eyes of a professional, I would invite you to give us a call today and find out what that might look like for you. No cost, no obligation, 15-minute phone call. And again, the worst thing that can come from this is you get great peace of mind. And probably the best thing is, like for this couple, there's going to be some great solutions that we're able to implement.
Wow.
And, at the end of the day, your plan isn't complete until your family is protected and taken care of. And we're going to do that for this couple as soon as they come back in.
Wow. Protected. That is so important. 866-295-5146. 866-295-5146. Tim, at any age, like you said, these guys are young. They're right. He's a Gen Y. I don't even know what he is because all I know is millennials.
Z, I think. But yeah.
But that's really some wonderful planning. And that's the human side of what you guys do. That's the fiduciary human side of what happens in financial services at that level and that age group, right?
Yeah, and again, we can automate because we started talking about automation.
Automation, yeah.
Can we automate some things? Yeah. Let's automate those contributions. But if I can free up, that $750 extra that they're putting towards the IRS right now, like if I can free up 600 of that and I only need like 300 to go to checking and savings, there's another 300 that's available, plus the 50 that's going to the 529, that's 350 that I can then say, I'm going to automate that, and I'm going to put that 350 towards your Roth IRA, right? That's 4,200. We add the 65 that you're already doing, so we got 350 and 65. That's 415 a month. Take that times 12, that's 5,000 roughly, 4,980. And essentially, we've taken a scenario where he was putting, what would that be, $780 a year into his Roth, and all of a sudden we automate things, and he's automatically, because it's set it and forget it, it's out of sight, out of mind, 4,980. What impact with the power of compounding is that going to have on his retirement readiness? Massive. We're not talking about big dollar amounts, but it's the power of compounding. If you had two people, both let's say age 25, and one saves from 25 to 35, and they save $1,000 a year, and they make 8% per year, and then they stop. And the other one doesn't do any saving. They just have fun because, hey, YOLO, and I'm young, and I'm going to do what I want. And they do no saving from 25 to 35. And then they start saving at 35, and they save from 35 to 65. So 30 years of savings. $1,000 a year, that's $30,000 a year versus $10,000. So they save 3 times as much as far as their contributions as the person that saved for 10 years, right? You with me, Jackie?
Yeah. However, the compounding strength.
Right. So who has more money at 65?
The 25-year-old who, saved for 10 years.
Absolutely. They've got probably, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 more. And they only save for 10 years. Why? The power of compounding. Einstein said it right. 8th one of the world. He who understands it gets it. He who doesn't pays it. Right now, there's some things that this situation I just described where they're paying it, but we're going to turn it around, and we're going to make it so they're receiving it. And all of a sudden, they're going to be able to see as time goes on, 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, like, oh my gosh. And we can project this for you, but oh my gosh. Look at what, a 1-hour meeting could completely change the trajectory of my financial life because I understand things more clearly. I can make informed decisions. They're going to put me in the driver's seat to be prepared for retirement versus looking back and saying, I wish somebody would have told me this sooner. 866-295-5146, 866-295-5146.
As Americans, we strive for better. From a better house to a better career to a better life for our children and grandchildren. Better has become the American way. When it comes to your retirement, what does better mean to you? Does it mean more income, a flexible lifestyle, better solutions? A better retirement begins with a financial plan. To get your complimentary written financial plan, call the number you see here. You only retire once. This is your opportunity to plan for better.
Hey, the Retirement Compass radio show on the air for you to give you some great information each and every week, building up to your retirement plan. But it's all about your financial plan. And in retirement, that is your life. I mean, it depends upon what kind of life you want to have, but you have to get started. So I have Tim Kulhanek in the Stonebridge Wealth Systems office in Lincoln. But there are offices in Kearney, Grand Island, and Omaha, but they can serve you pretty much anywhere you are, but specializing in the Midwest, of course. 866-295-5146. There's so much to talk about. I want to talk about legacy, though. I know this part of your, I know it's a point on the Retirement Compass, but is this part of your NAVI, N-A-V-I, your navigation principles?
Yeah. So
I'm using part of your own language. Oh,
I like it. Yeah, NAVI. It's the NAVI process. So we got
the
two
NAVI
processes.
process. Okay.
The NAVI process is shorthand for navigate, right? But it's an acronym. It's needs analysis, vision, and implementation.
Okay.
What are your needs? Let us analyze the situation. Let's project that vision out together, and then let's implement. After we implement, we're going to implement the Retirement Compass process, which is our actual, so instead of our appointment process, it's our planning process. We're going to look at the 5 key areas of planning: income, investment, tax, healthcare, legacy. Legacy, a lot of times people think of that like they call it estate planning. But too often estate planning is a vault but no wallet, because what people end up with is they end up with legal documents. They don't know what they say, what they want them to say, where they're located, or when they were last updated. And like I was just looking at mine the other day. I'm actually in the process of updating my estate documents, my legacy plan, if you will.
Okay.
And we did ours before our 3 girls were born.
Oh.
Okay? And so, like, a lot of it was written with the assumption that, like, hey, God willing, there's going to be children. So if something happens to me, it goes to Marley. Something happens to both of us, it goes to the person that we would later, deem to be the guardian, But I couldn't find actually language in my estate plan that named who those guardians are.
Oh.
That's a huge red flag, and I guarantee that there's hundreds of thousands, millions of people, and that same young people. I pointed to myself, young people, right? I'm a young guy.
You were.
A lot of people out there that, okay, they set it up when the kids are little. There's one I'm working right now, an estate case where the document was drafted right after the first child was born. Well, there was another child born and it was never updated. But again, you put language in there that assumes like, hey, additional children, it's going to be split equally, blah, 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 blah. But one of the biggest things is making sure for younger people that there's a guardian that you would trust. Otherwise, it's going to be a court process and a court deciding who the guardian is. And it may or may not be the person you want. And it
might
you
take
either
a while.
choose or you choose not to choose, but
Right.
you still made a choice and somebody else is going to decide for you, right? You have a will whether you've done the work or not. And so estate planning is so critical because most people think, oh, I need an estate plan. I'm not going to go to, Tim or a financial advisor. I just need to go to an attorney. I would argue that most attorneys would probably agree with me on this point that over half, most likely, or around half of the estate plans they've done, especially trust, which a lot of people are interested in trust, not specific advice on whether you need one or not. That's more of a discussion. I can't give. That's legal advice, which I can't give you. But we can go over the pros and cons. We can talk about the estate planning process, what a trust does, what a will does, and the differences. But so many trusts, that's the vault. There's no wallet. There's nothing in it. They can't spend anything in it. And if your goal was to avoid probate and you set up a trust and you're like, I'm good now, but you never, warranty deeded or whatever your house or your property into the trust. You never did any business assignments for the LLC that owns your investment property into the trust. You never, made provisions to say, hey, at my passing, I want any proceeds from the other business organizations that I'm involved with to be paid out to this trust. Like, if that's the case, then like you just have an expensive set of documents, but it didn't really do anything. It'll still do something, but it didn't solve the problem that you set out to, have a solution for, which was to avoid probate, because it's still going to go through probate even if you have a pour of will and things like that. So
Dear.
why is it important? Because, a few documents and a few hours of your time oftentimes can really prevent some heartache and really putting your family in a position that they don't want to be in, which is making decisions that they think you would have agreed with. You know what I mean?
Well, yes. This is not the most comfortable way to arrive at your end. 866-295-5146, 866-295-5146, Stonebridge Well Systems. This is, this whole talk about the legacy plan, Mr. Kulhanek, it can be a little bit uncomfortable for people, not just because of the assets, but just because of our own mortality. And financially, have we planned for what happens in the couple if one starts driving the wrong way down the road and they don't know where they are anymore, or there's a heart attack or a stroke situation? Can we talk about that a little bit, how this fits into our financial life and our legacy plan?
With healthcare going into retirement, there's all these stats on, hey, the average retiree will spend, however many $100,000 during their retirement on healthcare, and that doesn't include long-term care. There's all these out-of-pocket costs. Vision, dental isn't covered by Medicare. Mm-hmm. What kind of Medicare plan do I need? Do I do Advantage? Do I do regular Medicare to supplement? What if I worked overseas for the government? I've got the foreign service benefit plan. Do I need to keep that? If I also have TRICARE, does TRICARE cover it? Does Medicare cover international coverage? If not, do I need to keep this or that or the other or buy a supplemental policy? There's a lot that goes into it. And this is why a lot of people come to see us, is because they're like, I thought it was going to be easy. And then I got to the stage of the game where I had to make these decisions. I'm like, well, how am I supposed to know? And you can, there's plenty of information online that you can find, but you're going to get a ton of different opinions, and none of it's, unique or, curated specifically for your financial situation.
Okay.
And so when it comes to healthcare planning, you've got to understand that Medicare doesn't cover a lot of the things that you may need later in life. It won't cover, I already touched on vision and dental, but it won't cover long-term care. I know this is sounds like a broken record, but that's just the truth. It won't. It'll cover skilled care if you were in the hospital for 3 days, and then it has a limited, duration of benefits for some sort of skilled care. I think of that more like if you ended up in Madonna or something like that. It's not if you ended up in a custodial facility where you're going to be there long-term. There's a lot of different designs for these different facilities that you could potentially go to. I've got clients right now who are in transition. I've got some that have made down payments to make sure that they're on the wait list. So in the next 3 to 5 years, when a space opens up, they can get into a facility. Then they maybe have an ongoing fee. How many meals a day does it cover? Do you have credits? Is there just 2 meals and you're on your own for the other?
Oh,
is there a kitchen in the place that I potentially be? And a lot of them have them. There's a lot of decisions to be made, but at the end of the day, my job is to say, well, how do we design a plan that's going to cash flow that? Where does the income come from? Because if you think about it this way, if you've got a couple, one of them might not, they might not both move in there. If it's a healthcare thing, it could be one needs a higher level of assistance than what can be provided at home, and so they end up in a facility, but they don't always move in at the same time. So what our software does when we plan for these things is there's a button that says, do you want to discontinue all the other expenses at the time of the first long-term care event? In other words, we assume that they're both going to move in at the same time, and you no longer have, taxes and insurance on the house because you sold it. You no longer have the maintenance and the upkeep and the utilities because you sold it. Or are we going to assume you're running effectively 2 different households in a way, right?
Okay, yeah.
And so there's not a wrong or right way, right or wrong way. I think it'd probably be the best way to say it. But at the end of the day, what I want to do is I want to test the plan. I want to stress test it. And there's a ton of different ways you can do a spending plan. You can say, okay, I'm going to use just an inflation adjusted. I need X today, increase that at 3% a year, and I'm going to need Y tomorrow. Mm-hmm. There's guardrails that says, hey, I'm going to spend, I want to do 4% of my portfolio as a distribution rate. But then if it increases by 20%, so if my distribution rate increases over 4% by 20%, so to 4.8%, well, then I'm going to drop my expenses by X a percent because I don't want to overspend. Okay. But if it drops by, if my spending drops by more than 20% over the starting value, then I'm going to increase my expenses. So it's kind of like keeping you in this range where it says,
the
I'm
comfort
going to spend
range.
somewhere in here. I'm not just going to go up with inflation.
Right.
The thing of it is, like, I would rather stress test a plan based on the maximum amount we think you would possibly ever need. Because usually you go through kind of phases in retirement, the go, slow go, no-go phase. And so that's called retirement spending stages. There's also like the smile where it starts higher, it dips, and then healthcare expenses kick in and it goes up. A lot of different ways to skin the cat, so to speak. But at the end of the day, my job is to say, if these are your goals, is the plan designed to work now, regardless of what happens? Good market, bad, high inflation, low inflation, high rates, low rates for as far as interest goes? Or are there adjustments we need to make today to put you on a path to a higher probability of success? We do that with all of our clients and all of our prospects who come in. We invite you to give a call today. There's two types of people in the world. There's those that hear this information and they're like, maybe someday I should take action on that, and they never do. There's those that hear it and they're like, I need to take action today to change my circumstances to better serve my purposes, not only today, but later on. I'd invite you to be that option number 2, and pick up the phone today.
Use this number, 866-295-5146, 866-295-5146. For Stonebridge Wealth Systems, we have the centralized number set up, 866-295-5146.
The work never seems to end until the day it finally does. After nearly a lifetime on the job, you should be rewarded for all the time you spent working. Whether that's crossing off items on your bucket list, learning a new passion, or rekindling the love of an old one. After all, life isn't over when you stop working. It's the start of an all-new chapter. The one where you're the writer and you get to choose how your story will go. A way to achieve that is by having a clear financial plan to sustain your golden years. The biggest fear most retirees have is if they'll have enough money to maintain the lifestyle they've always enjoyed. Having a plan to help protect you against the curveballs life often throws will help to maintain your lifestyle. Call today to get your free written financial plan so you may live every day to the fullest and enjoy the retirement of your dreams.
Welcome back to the show, Retirement Compass Radio Show. I've got Tim Kulhanek, and you were saying that recently you had a meeting with someone along with Zach Vankis, who's now in your office, and we've done shows with before. He's a nice young man.
Yeah, I haven't told you this. I ordered a wide-angle lens because this one's pretty zoomed in. This is as far zoomed out as we can get, so you can't get everybody in here.
Okay.
So I ordered a wide-angle lens for my camera, so young Zach will be able to join and have a seat right over here.
To your right hand, yes.
Maybe we can get Eli, Zach, and myself in here
Okay.
sometimes. What a party that would be.
That would be a fun party. Just to let the radio listener know that we post these in video form on YouTube. Please go and subscribe. Of course, everybody says that, right?
Like and subscribe.
Yes.
Like and subscribe.
So tap that notification bell. Stonebridge Wealth Systems on YouTube. Thank you very
that's
much.
us.
All right, so you and Zach talked to someone.
Yeah, and so essentially, let's just go through a quick scenario since I know we have scenarios coming up. But
Okay.
let's say somebody is cruising towards retirement. They're in their mid-60s. They've got maybe 3-4 more years that they're going to be working. They've already backed off maybe a lot of their farming activity, but they're doing some consulting work, and they get paid maybe $150,000 a year for that. Well, the scenario we ran into recently is the way this person was being compensated was he did consulting work for a family member, and they paid him, let's just say, $50,000. And then he did consulting work on his own. He has his own S corporation, and he gets paid, let's say, $70,000. So I'm at 120 combined. Well, he was paying himself a W-2 wage out of his own S corp of $70,000. Right, so everything that came into the S corp he was paying out as a ordinary income wage, which means not only is it subject to federal and state income tax in the state of Nebraska, but also your FICA FUTA tax, right? So your 7.65% for Medicare Social Security. Then the work he was doing for the family member, let's call it $50,000, whatever it was being paid as a W-2 wage, even though he was doing consulting work. And I looked at that and I said, Zach, there's a huge potential opportunity. I'm not a CPA, so I can't give you specific tax advice per se. But there's a huge opportunity here to potentially save substantial dollars. So we got $120,000 in my scenario, all hitting as a W-2. Well, like you've got your own S corp set up, and so you can pay yourself a wage out of your S corp, but you're not necessarily required. Again, talk to your CPA. Not required to pay all of that out as a W-2 wage. You're required to pay a reasonable wage, right? And so is reasonable wage 100% of what your corporation brings in? I don't know, but let's just hypothetically assume that it's not.
Not.
And if the family member is paying you W-2 wage, that means that they're paying half of that 15.3%. So it's costing them 7.65%, you 7.65%. And let's just assume that you're not doing it for Social Security purposes because you've already got your highest 35 years. You're not worried about like trying to get caught up on Social Security. Well, what if, hypothetically speaking, we shifted that instead of having a $120,000 W-2, it was just cut it in half. Let's say it was a $60,000 W-2. Well, that means on the other $60,000, there's savings of 15.3%. Well, that's $9,180 every year. That's real money. Maybe to some people it doesn't. Oh, it's only $9,000. Well, if you said it's only $9,000, then there's probably a reason why you said that. You know, either you've got more money than you ever know what to do with, or you have no money because you think $9,000 is not that big of a deal. And that's not the case for this guy. But what I'm saying is there's opportunities out there that we see all the time. And so if you have, depending on your structure, if you're an LLC and you file as an S corp, there could be things that you could do to, again, augment your circumstances to better serve your purposes. Now, let me take it one step further. I know we just got a couple seconds left.
Yes.
This person, let's just say that they also want to be able to save more towards retirement. So that is a goal of theirs because they want to minimize their tax bill. If they're paying themselves $60,000, let's say that they cut that back and they pay themselves, $35,000. And they pay their spouse $35,000. Well, okay, now, Tim, you're up to 70. Okay, but what I can do, and I can do 30 and 30. Let's just move to 30 and 30. What I can do is I can now do a 401k, a solo 401k. So you can have two people in a solo 401k as long as it's like a husband and wife and other ineligible like family members and stuff like that. But let's just say it's a solo 401k. They can do $24,500 in the 401k. Well, let's do Roth. So we don't need to save the taxes. We just want tax-free income in the future. $24,500 plus, you could have up to $8,000 catch-up because they're over age 50. So $32,500, as long as we pay ourselves that plus a little bit of a buffer, so probably go back to the 35 or something like that, we could potentially be putting $65,000 a year into a Roth 401k, a tax-free investment vehicle. So again, there's so many, I know there's people out there right now listening to this, that these are the types of things we could help you with if you just give us the opportunity. You can't get a second opinion from the person that gave you the first one. So I encourage you to, again, pick up the phone, give us a call, meet with one of our experienced advisors. Like, even though there's 11 of us, like if you come to the Lincoln office, this is a team approach. So I told you that Zach was in on that one.
Yeah.
But like my kind of role here is to make sure that even if I'm not the person sitting in the meeting, I'm overseeing things, kind of as the visionary, if you will. I answer questions and solve problems to help design, implement, and allow my team to help manage. So give us a call today, and we'll put it together for you.
Right, you'll have eyes on it. 866-295-5146, 866-295-5146.
Did you ever think your retirement would be shared with our government? It's true. Your traditional 401k, IRA, pension, or similar retirement accounts are like a partnership with the IRS. Simply put, they want their tax dollars, and you have them. With our latest tax calculator, you can plug in your own numbers while sitting at home. To find out what your future tax liability could be, scan the QR code or go to stonebridgetaxbill.com.
We've got some grandkids here involved in this particular scenario. Tim Kulhanek, welcome back, everyone, to the Stonebridge Well Systems Retirement Compass Radio Show. They want to help you out, get you to and through your retirement years. And if you got grandkids, boy, in 3 different time zones, thinking about booking flights like they used to book lunch. What's a good strategy for grandparents to manage travel costs in retirement while still making these memories? What's your advice to folks?
Yeah, and my advice is simple. You ready for it?
I don't know.
My advice is test your plan, okay?
Oh, all
Don't
right.
just like YOLO, shoot from the hip. I said that too much this segment or this show, but like
okay.
it's kind of like one of those like, oh, who cares? You know, throw caution to the wind, say la vie. I'm gonna like instant gratification. And there's plenty of studies that show that people who delay gratification tend to be more successful long term, right? So like using the pay now, experience later versus buy now, pay later type of approach.
Oh, yeah.
So have a set aside account, test your plan. I was just looking, you know, if you can see me on the podcast, on the video podcast, I'm constantly looking at my computer. And I'm doing that because I have different ideas and just things that have happened in the last week or two that I'm like, okay, I know I have something to say about this. So like looking at our planning software, I had someone come in and they're like, okay, that's good, but that didn't include a travel budget. So what are we going to do? I guess we have to go back to work, you know? Like a lot of times it's like, oh, well, this is terrible. You know, we
People
didn't account
say
for that.
they think that, yes.
Well, let's build it in, you know?
Okay.
So I build in, I say, okay, let's go to your goals. Let's say we want to do $15,000 a year for travel. And we want to increase that at the just general rate of inflation. So somewhere between 2.5% and 3%. Does it still work? You know? And like sometimes people try to answer the question, how much can I afford to spend in retirement? Well, like there's no like one size fits all approach. Like there's the old 4% rule, which was designed years ago, I think by an advisor down in like Phoenix or something. I don't know where it was. It's just like a rule of thumb. But like some people, they might have, I've got clients who have good pensions. So I've got a client who has Social Security for both of them, a corporate pension, a military retirement, a government pension, and a VA benefit. They don't need the money that they have. The retirement accounts are completely discretionary. So if they're spending 10% a year, they don't care because it's like, well, that's because we're healthy now and we're going to travel while we can.
Okay.
Like we can easily live on our fixed incomes. Easily. We've got a giant surplus. Oh, by the way, we're going to have this stuff paid off in the next 5 years, and that's $4,000 a month. And like these things that we splurged on because we wanted to have these experiences with our family. One of our 5 ways that we distill down how to have a positive relationship with your finances is to buy experiences, right? Instead of buying stuff, buy experiences and buy time. Well, that's what they've done, right? So there's no one size fits all, but we can stress test your plan. Let's say you don't have 5 fixed incomes. You have Social Security and your 401k, like most people, right? Maybe some rental income from either property that you're renting out for farm cash rent or something like that, or maybe some residential things, whatever. But most people, it's I got Social Security and I got my investment accounts. Well, we'll just stress test your plan. And you know, some people are more aggressive and they're okay with more uncertainty. Some people are more conservative and they want something that's guaranteed. One thing that I talk about on this program a lot, Jackie, is the fact that there was a study done by a couple researchers, professors from the American College for Financial Planning. The study was led by David Blanchett, who used to be head of research for planning at Morningstar. And essentially, just paraphrasing what the report found was people who had one of 3 things, either delayed Social Security until age 70, had a corporate pension or some sort of government pension that was guaranteed income, or had an annuity that had guaranteed income, would spend up to double every year in retirement versus those that didn't have those types of fixed income guarantees. Now, the question is, why is that? Why were those people willing to spend more out of their portfolio versus those who didn't have the guaranteed income? And it came down to partially a rational response to the unknown of longevity because you don't have guaranteed income in the first in that first scenario, but also an irrationality of like not wanting to see your balance dip at all. Well, I got 1.5 million saved. If it's down to 1.4 million, it's really going to give me anxiety. I'm just going to not do anything this year. Like that doesn't make sense because that's why you saved the money in the first place. But of the people that were in their survey, I think it was something like only a third of them were spending more than their portfolio generated in income.
Oh.
And of the third that was, or of the 2/3 that weren't spending more, only a third of them had like a specific bequest goal. In other words, only 1/3 of the people who were refusing to spend money said, well, it's because I want to make sure money goes to my kids. So all this is to say you have to have a balanced, comprehensive approach to retirement. You have to use the right tool. And the good news, like the way Stonebridge works, is if, you call the handyman up because there's a leaky sink or whatever it might be, and they show up and all they had was paintbrushes, you'd be like, what are you doing? Oh, well, I'm more of like a wall repair guy. I thought maybe there was some scuffs. So I was just going to paint over it. Well, no, I want you to have whatever tool is needed for the job. So I want your tool chest when you open up your toolbox, and I want to have screwdrivers, hammers, maybe an
putty knife,
tape measure, a putty knife, wrenches, the things that we might need in order to fix whatever challenge we're facing. And at Stonebridge, we really do have our strategies run the gamut where we have that flexibility to be able to use the right tool for the job. And for some people, that's going to be focusing on growth strategies. For others, it's going to be focusing on either income or growth without risk to give you that peace of mind, that volatility buffer that's going to allow you to spend more money because you can spend it with confidence and have peace of mind and financial peace knowing that you're spending money reasonably and responsibly. So you can enjoy those things that so many people, again, unfortunately, just totally miss out on because of the unknown, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. It's a real good reason to get on it. Call to action, 866-295-5146. Call Stonebridge Well Systems, 866-295-5146. The other one I was going to present you with is kind of the same. They're worried about running out of money, so they are refusing to turn on the heat in the house. Oh, we'll just use a little, fireplace in the one room. So how do you help somebody balance their healthy fear of outliving the money and actually enjoying the retirement then? We talk about a lot.
Yeah.
But it's common.
It's common. I actually had somebody in my office the other day who they were talking about a friend of theirs who she's still working. She's in her 70s. And the reason she's working is because they had like an acreage, let's say, moved off the acreage. Their son, they had 3 kids. Their son wanted to take over the acreage. So they said, okay, you can live on the acreage. We'll give that to you. Didn't buy it from him. So that was part of his pre-inheritance. But then they realized, oh, well, now distribution is unequal, right? So this acreage is such a large portion of our resources that we don't have enough to split. So the two girls get an equal dollar amount inheritance. So she's working, putting money in a retirement account in order to try to build that up to be enough so that there's equality between them. And so, like, that's a terrible thing, in my opinion. They're like, I don't know. There's a better way to do it. One way, for example, would be to say, hey, we're moving, but you have to buy your sisters out, So we'll give you get your portion. You can have a third of this, but the other 2/3, you have to buy them out effectively, pay us for that. So we'll knock a bunch off the price, but then you're paying for the other portion, and then you'll still get an equal third back. Another way for things to work out is we have another client who is worried about passing money to the next generation, and Zach asked him, he said, on a scale of having your check to the undertaker bounce to not eating for a month, a week, however long you can, and not turning the heat on in order to make sure more money goes to the next generation, where do you fall on that continuum? And he goes, I really don't need to eat that much. Was his way of saying, like, no, my goal is to take care of that. That's fine. There's not a right or wrong set of priorities. But a ton of their money. What's that?
It answered the question.
It answered the question, but here's the solution. We found that there was a lot of money sitting in cash, so like money markets, CDs, that sort of thing, generating 1099 ordinary income interest, which is hitting the 1040. So even if you're getting 4% or 3.5%, whatever it might be, let's take that 4%. Let's assume that they're getting 4%, and then let us assume that they're in the 22% tax bracket for income tax, plus another 5% for state. So they're losing 27% of that 4%, which means their net return is 2.92%. So, like, you're barely treading water. You're kind of losing money safely in that scenario. And so I said, you're really not making much money. You're just barely keeping up with inflation. So what if we instead took a chunk of that money and we just bought a life insurance policy? I don't want to buy life insurance. I don't need life insurance. That's for young people. Okay, but like, what if
Hear
it
me
only
out.
took 20% of your cash assets, and you get to keep 80% or 30%, and you keep 70%, and that 30% bought enough life insurance that you could spend the rest of your money with confidence, spend all of it, and you know that when you're gone, when you die 30 years from now, peacefully in your sleep, that there's tax-free dollars that's going to take care of your family, and you were able to enjoy those experiences with them, build those memories that will last generations, versus and eat some good meals along the way without having to starve yourself or feel like, oh, I can't afford to do this because I have this overarching goal that I need to make sure I
Right,
achieve.
yes.
We can do both, but you have to
Okay.
have an open mind.
All
And
right.
so, like, for those listening, if you feel like you're open-minded to maybe hearing some information that is new or a different way of doing things that could potentially get you to your goals and objectives more efficiently, taking a quicker route, maybe that's a reason why you'd want to give us a call.
Great. 866-295-5146, 866-295-5146. Call Stonebridge Well Systems. Get on the schedule. By golly, 866-295-5146.